Okay, it's recording, yay. I'm on my YouTube videos, I've learned, and I don't have that many, but walk around, so there's not a big picture of your backside now.
Good to know.
Yeah, yes. Okay, well, welcome to the Service Dog Seminar. My name is Cindy, and it has on here Heidi down at the bottom, and she's not going to be here, unfortunately. Her brother decided to get married today. Oh. All the nerve. But here's a little background on me. So I've had dogs for about 30 years or so, and started since I graduated from Triple Crown. I've been going more and more towards service dogs. It was kind of always there, so that I wanted to do that. I wanted to do puppy raising since forever, but wasn't able to do that. So now I'm doing this, and I've got there's one working dog out. He's been out there for about almost a year and a half, and you might see him around town sometimes. A big golden retriever.
What's his name?
Ben. And a lot of times the people that have their service dogs don't give out their real name, and you might want to remember this. They don't give out the real name because they don't want everybody, calling their dog. And so they have a public name, and then they have the real name. So if you ever hear somebody tell you, or somebody, it's one name and then they use something else, that's why. This is the program that we're going to be following, and Charlie was not able to make it. It's his last free weekend before he gets married, so yeah, so he didn't get a chance to make it. Elisa is going to be bringing, she does CCI dogs, so she's going to be bringing a puppy in and talking about the puppy raisers some. Karen has had service dogs for many years. You guys have probably seen her over at the VA clinic. So she's going to be talking about having multiple service dogs and what you have to go through with that. And then Diane, she had a greyhound, that's what it was, a greyhound, that she was basically self-training for service work. And she's going to talk about what it's like having or not having a support system for training a dog. And this is Lance. All my dogs are trained in all sorts of different aspects of helping. I've got 3 of them that'll get things out of the dryer when my back is bad. I've got a couple of them that'll get my spare toilet paper, open the refrigerator door for me, various things, close the doors. So like, as it says, many dogs can help, but there's not many that can be service dogs. So you got to be really, really careful when you're picking dogs. You guys with having PTSD, you guys will have to be aware that sometimes people will want to get a large dog to be protective. That's not what service dogs are for. So if somebody is in that state of mind that they want to get a dog to protect them, you would want to help work them through that, because that's not a time they should be getting a dog. I'll go over more about that. Here are some service dog terms. And assistance dog and service dog are pretty much synonymous. And then there's the different types that describe what the dog does, what their actual job is. An emotional support dog, that is a pet dog. That's not qualified as a service dog. People will use that and consider that, I have fibromyalgia. I have high blood pressure. Petting the dog calms me down, and my doctor said I should have one. And they'll try and get the dog in, but it's not covered under ADA laws. It's covered under housing. They're allowed under housing and on airplanes, but they're not considered a service dog because they do not have a trained task to mitigate the disability. Your guide and seeing eye dogs, everybody's pretty familiar with that. Helper dogs, those are used for general service dogs, but they're more considered like in the house helpers, and you'll see those sometimes with dogs that were not able to deal with the public access, and so they'll have them house helpers, and they just help around the house. And sometimes that's all people need, is just help around the house. And there you got house helper also. And medical alert dog covers a wide variety. That can be anything. It can be diabetic alert. It can be seizure alert. I'm sorry. So it can cover a wide variety, and so it's just all these different terms. Working dogs are usually referred to, the police dogs are the working dogs, and those are not covered under the service dog laws. They do not have access in public as a service dog does. And it's not actually the dog that has the rights, it's the person that has the right to take the dog. So the police dogs, unless they're working, unless they're on duty, do not have the access rights to go anywhere and do anything. Certification is for the team, for the dog and for the team. It's testing the dog usually on a public access test, and it is not required under ADA. Keep that in mind. Gatekeepers are the people, the greeters at Walmart, anybody that challenges a person out in public is a gatekeeper. You know, an official person, a member of the store, the whatever. That's the gatekeeper. And mitigated disability, of course, is to lessen the effects of the disability. Owner-trainer is the person that owns the dog and they are training them themselves. PWD, you'll see that a couple of times, that's a person with disability. Program dog, that is a dog that is trained by a program such as CCI, Guiding Eyes, things like that. One of the organizations that trains the dog and then gives it to or sells it to a person. And then public access is going out into public and working. These are some of the service dog regulations. These are the big ones. And you've got copies of many of these. These are listed because sometimes they're hard to find and people don't know exactly where to look and things like that. Like the Department of Transportation, the service dogs on flights, that is a rather hard one to find. U.S. Code Title 40, with the VA, especially this comes into effect because there is one of the instructions that talks about the service dogs being admitted, and it mentions U.S. Code 40. That's the blanket that allows dogs. And into public buildings, property, works, and the federal buildings. So there is one of the statements on the VA that talks about dogs under Title 40. So that's why that's there. U.S. Code is the blanket, and then things come off of that. The CFR comes from that. Title 38. And I am not a lawyer. I forgot to add that at the first. I am not a lawyer, so I have been going through these for several years as things come up, and then for the last months going over and over and over. So if you have anything to do with federal regulations, you know that sometimes it can get a little muddled when you get too deep into it and you lose track of it. You can't see the forest for the trees. So sometimes it's like that. So if I'm stumbling in some spots, that's why. It's all muddled up in there. But to the best of my ability, this stuff is accurate. Your Title 38, you've got a copy of that. You've got a little packet there of your handout that's all the VHA stuff that I could find. And then your HUD, that's all your housing stuff. So, ma'am, you would want to know, you would want to have that and be aware of where that is and how that applies to you.
Well, my mom owns her home, so.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
And excuse me for just asking, but that portion kind of helps people not have to pay the pet deposits because they're allowed to have the service animal in the home?
The service animal or the emotional support animal.
Okay.
Yeah, with some limitations on the emotional support animals. Like you can't bring a snake in and say, this is my emotional support animal. And that doesn't quite fall in there. A llama would not fall in there. You know, things like that. But within reason. Yeah, but that's the one. Your ADA has all your employment things, how it applies, all your definitions of service dog, your definition of disabilities, and all of that. Very important to know about that one. And the definition of service animal, and how and where they're allowed, the behavior of the animal and the handler. So this is a really big one. Title II is the public entities, including state or local government and any of its departments, agencies, or other instrumentalities. So that's all your activities, services, and programs of public entities are covered, including the activities of the state legislature and courts and town meetings and police and fire departments, and et cetera. And that's very important because sometimes you have people that have never had a service dog come into a town hall meeting, and yes, your service dog is allowed. Your dog is allowed to go with you into court. If you're testifying, if you're just attending, your dog is allowed. So it's good to be aware of that. And this is the big one, that a public entity shall make reasonable modifications in policies, practices, or procedures unless the public entity can demonstrate that making the modification would fundamentally alter the nature of the service, program, or activity. This is a really important statement right there, because this is one of the few places where service dogs can be denied. One of the cases was a sporting goods store that had a dog that patrolled the store, and I don't know how exactly it was trained, but it was trained to stop anybody from taking certain things out. So somebody wanting to take a service dog in there was not allowed to. Now, if a person is not allowed to bring their service dog in because it would fundamentally alter it, then the person must be allowed to come back in without the service dog. So they can't stop the person from shopping at the store, they can just borrow the service dog. That also can apply to someone whose insurance bans pit bulls, things like that. They cannot be required to have insurance that covers that. If their insurance doesn't cover it, then that dog cannot come in. The person can come in without the dog, of course, but the dog can't, and that would be a fundamental alteration. And that's why you got to consider what kind of dog that you're taking, you're having as a service dog. Public accommodations is your Title III, and that's all your commercial things and your private entities. You know, your regular stuff that you go out to. All your restaurants, your hotels, commercial facilities, et cetera, et cetera. Entities controlled by religious organizations, including your place of worship, are not included in that. Private clubs are not included in that. With the stipulation being is if that private club is renting it out to a public organization that would normally have public access, then they have to allow the dog in. Because these are private organizations, they do not have to allow service dogs. Okay. This one is the formulation reflects the general intent of Congress that public accommodations take the necessary steps to accommodate service animals and to ensure that the individuals with disabilities are not separated from their service dogs. So that is a big one also. There are people that say, you know, well, I will hold your dog and you can go into the store, or you can go in and, you know, your service dog can't. You can go into this part, but your service dog can't. And you have to leave your service dog here. No, the service dog goes where you need to go. Exceptions to that are sterile atmospheres, and then the religious and what we've already covered. Questions?
But they would be allowed just in like a regular doctor's office?
Yes, regular doctor's office. and some of the areas of the hospital, private, or any room, private or not, and you know, any place besides sterile. And fear of animals or allergies are not reasons to bar a dog. However, like if you're in a pre-surgical area, they may not want the dog, and it would probably not be a good idea to take the dog in, because if you've got somebody with allergies and they're going to surgery, you know, that if they have a flare-up of their allergies, it could complicate the surgery. So that may be one time when you did not want to take the dog in, even though you're allowed to. It's intended that the broadest feasible access be provided to service animals, and this is to the people. It's read as, it says as to the service animal, but it's, remember, it's the person that has the access guaranteed, not the dog. There are rare circumstances where accommodation of service animals may not be required because of a fundamental alteration like we talked about. And the rule does not require public accommodation to supervise or care for any service animal. And in fact, many times I will turn down an offer of a bowl of water or a treat for my dog, because I don't want them to think that that's required. I take care, and this is when I'm taking a service dog and training around. I don't want them to think that's part of it. Because I provide for the dog as I should be, and cleaning up after the dog, giving the dog food and water, etc., is all on the handler. Okay, the museum would not be required to modify a policy barring the touching of a delicate item by a person who is blind. So that would be a fundamental alteration. The piece could be damaged, etc. So the same thing, if they had that item on a stand and somebody comes with a service dog who's moving around a lot, whose tail is wagging, they might say, I'm concerned about the safety of that piece. That would be a time where they could bar access also. Okay, VA, yay! And you've got a copy of this instruction, CFR 38, and it defines what types of service dogs the VA will pay benefits for. This is a big one, and they're studying. There was a study that started a couple of years ago for psychiatric service dogs. That fell by the wayside, and they are picking that up again, I do believe. So hopefully they will be working on this.
Which handout has the VA information?
I think it has something about VA on the front of it. I don't remember what's on the front. But this is not what types of dogs are allowed, it's what the VA will pay for. The VA will not pay for psychiatric service dogs. They can allow the service dogs. We're going to get more into that also. And it does not require a veteran to use a covered service dog. They've recently defined what a covered service dog is, and that is one by an organization called Assistance Dogs International. And that organization is a blanket organization of member facilities. So it's training facilities that have met the certain certification criteria for ADI, as far as training the dog, and we're going to go more into that later, as far as training the dog, following up, training the handler, and all the paperwork over the years for that. And they have met certain criteria for that. And I remember a few years ago when the VA was looking into this and they were asking for input. And they were, because of course the government